Hi, this is Larry Catch. I certainly wish I could have been there with you today, taking part in the this workshop. I know that for me, I've always seen South Korea as such a beautiful country. I wish I could be there with you. And I've been working with the staff I've been coaching now for well over 2 years. And if the South Korean population, the people of South Korea are anything like a reflection of who in coaching staff are, and you are also an amazing population of people. As an introduction to this workshop, I'd like to provide a personal component to the 12 DNA personality types. I didn't set out to create them. I discovered them. I was 75 years old. I was retiring. I didn't want anything heavy in my life. I'd spent 2 years of my life as a psychologist in a wide variety of activities in psychology, from being a university professor to a family counselor to an executive leadership coach to a career counselor for teenagers to a child psychologist. And it's made my life very fulfilling. And when prior to just retiring, I was reviewing my research, some of my research that I'd done from the very beginning, just to say, well, why not? I got the time to do that. And in that process, I discovered some really interesting research. And this goes back, in this case, 30 years. And at the time, I found it interesting, but it wasn't relevant to what I was interested in. Right? And so I just sort of put it in my drawer. And so, I got other things I'd rather be doing with my life. But when I started looking at it, the research, I I noticed it was statistically quite unique. At the end of the day, there were six large factors, what we call statistical behavioral factors. And each one of these factors were polarized from A to B. Like you think of the Myers-Briggs, like you think of the single personality trait called introversion, extroversion. It's on a continuum. It's one trait, but it goes from extrovert to introversion. Okay? And everyone sort of falls on that line somewhere. And that trait exists. We know that trait exists. It's a real psychological entity. Okay? It's a component of who we are as people. But in this research that I found, because I was dealing with 85 distinct independent personality traits that the success finder measures. And some of you are familiar, been in the certification program for that, I think. And in this case, there were six factors, six personality dimensions, entities on a continuum, from opportunist to altruist, from imaginative to inventive, from process driven to results driven, from insightful to inclusive, from analytic to holistic, responsible individualist. So there were six complex personality factors. And each of these factors had anywhere from 7, 8 to 10 to 12 traits. So if you can imagine each one of these 12 personality types on the continuum from A to B, each of them contained 7 to 10 to 12 traits. Like introversion, extroversion is one trait. Opportunists had 10 or 12 of those. Very rich, very deep. To give you some understanding, if you were to take 10 different books in 10 different colors and you started organizing them in different ways. It was, how many combinations can I get of colors? You know how much it is? 3,486,000 possible combinations, statistically. That's how rich and how deep each one of these individual personality types is. Each of these 12 types has that potential for human richness and uniqueness. And each one of these personality types sometimes comes in hybrids in terms of combinations, like opportunist inventive, opportunist imaginative. So at the end of the day, there's 72 personality types that people are strong in. And the fascinating thing is, in each one of these 72 personality types, there's only 2% of the population will have your personality type, be it an opportunist or being an insightful opportunist. Okay? Of the 72, every one of these 72, there's only 2% of you in the world. Okay? That's amazing. And to me, that's what captured my imagination. And the more I got to know about personality DNA and my own personality type, the more I became to recognize that it made my self-awareness and self-understanding deeper and richer and somehow than all the other psychological tests I've ever taken. And I assure you, in the last 60 years, there's hardly a single psychological test, and certainly personality test, that I haven't taken and that I haven't taught at the graduate level of university. So it's not easy to impress me. At the time, I thought to myself, it's not going to be easy to impress me. And yet, the 12 DNA personality types and discovering my personality type impressed me. I had a sense that I knew myself in a way that all the other tests couldn't quite capture. And then I got really excited when I had this insight. In case you're wondering, I'm an insightful, holistic personality type. I'm prone to this kind of nonsense. But the insight I had was, not only was it telling me who I was with such clarity and definitiveness as a person, but the more I experienced that person and was aware of who that personality type was, I realized not only is this who I am, but it's who I want to be. It's who I would strive to be from a self-actualization perspective. And that was very rich for me. And I hope that as you embrace your personality type and you start working with other people with their personality type, you'll have that same sense of awe, that sense of wow, this person is very unique. And this person, I want to help them become more aware of who they are, to prize themselves for who they are, and to actually want to be who they are, to set out on a life quest. Their purpose is to be who I am. Now, to go back to my original introduction, I didn't create personality DNA. I discovered it through this research. Albert Einstein was trying to imagine, was trying to theorize how the universe worked. And he came up with this theory called E equals mc squared. Okay? And then he started scientifically, mathematically trying to prove it. I didn't do that. Thomas Edison visualized this thing called a light bulb that could change the world, could change how we live our lives. and he conceptualized it in a theoretical manner, and then he set about inventing it, making it happen. I didn't do that with personality DNA. James Watson, the Nobel Prize winning scientist, he and Crick, who got the Nobel Prize for identifying the DNA double helix, the shape of it. And James Watson received that from a dream. When he was a young scientist, he dreamed of this double spiral with the DNA somehow because he had such a rich, genius mind and capacity. That's what he visualized it. And then it was 20 years later that the electronic microscopes became so sophisticated that he could actually prove that his dream was real. Okay? I didn't do that. I didn't dream about personality DNA. I didn't dream it exists. I discovered that it exists. And at the same time I discovered it existed, I discovered that it was real and that it was scientifically validated. There is no other personality test in this world, I assure you, that has the statistical scientific validity to prove that they are, in fact, real psychological entities because I found them through factor analysis. Okay? I had to take these 85 personality traits that SuccessFactor had, and I asked the computer at the time, which was in the 1990s, and not as sophisticated are the day. I said, can you find any patterns of personality, patterns of behavior that tends to pattern together, to clump? So like molecules, how many different atoms have to bond together to become plastic versus how many atoms have to bond together to become water? Okay? So I instructed it to go out and find the largest patterns possible of these 85 behavioral traits, if possible. Because I already knew that every one of these 85 traits were independent statistically. There's no correlation. You can't predict one personality type from the other personality type. Okay? And my poor computer ran for 72 hours. And when I checked to see how many different combinations was it looking for, it went through 1 big trillion combinations, like the 10 books we talked about, different colors. Imagine you have 85 books with 85 different colors, and you're trying to arrange them in every possible combination. You know how many you would get? In an approximate number of combinations, these 85 traits that the computer sifted through. If I compare common sense with intuition, intuition was analytic, high intuition, high analytic, high innovative, et cetera, all through every possible combination. I looked down in the corner of my computer and it went through 1 big trillion combinations to come up with these 6 polar factors that I've been talking about. 1 big trillion combinations it tried of putting these 85 different books with 85 different colors in every possible combination. And amazingly, it came out with these 6 rotopolar, as I said, big trillion combinations. That's 1 with 62 zeros at the end. Don't take the accuracy and the validity of these personality types lightly. They exist. I assure you from my own experience working with them and working with people who are, that they're amazing. The other thing I want to work with you through, if you're going to work with personality DNA, there's a reality that you're going to have to face. Like all new theories. This isn't a theory, as I said, it's a fact, it's a reality. It hasn't been around a long time. Take chemistry. 3 to 5,000 years ago, it was called alchemy. And they believed that there were 5 elements in the world: fire, water, earth, gases, the soul, spirit. Only 5. And it evolved over 5,000 years into a very rich, complex science. I have a degree in chemistry. I have a short history as a biochemist. Since the age of 12, I loved chemistry. I was fascinated by it. It captured me at the age of 12. And went right through university with chemistry. And can you imagine, just for a second, how much information, okay, chemistry, knowledge of the world around us, everything is chemical. Yeah? Everything can be quantified in a chemical way. And if not, it can be quantified in a mathematical way. But so much can be quantified in a chemical way. How much chemical knowledge can a field of science accumulate in 3 to 5,000 years? My God. To give you an idea, if someone were to ask me, like, Larry, how did the universe form the element of carbon? Carbon makes up who we are as a human being on this planet. How is carbon created? Chemistry knows that answer. It knows that somewhere in the guts of a star, there's so much pressure, gravitational pressure on these different elements of the universe. 76 different natural universes that are in this star, this natural elements. That somewhere in that whole interaction of this sun, everything it does every second, every day, the pressure that is putting on these hydrogen elements, just the primary element of the universe, nitrogen. And at some point, if there's a beryllium element and a lithium element, they happen to be in close contact with each other, and the gravitational pull pops them together, they form carbon. They blow apart, but some of those 6 different elements hold together. 6 atoms hold together. You know how long it takes for that carbon element to form? 1 billion of 1 millionth of a second. Chemistry knows that. Can you imagine a science that's that rich? Psychology, certainly the psychology of personality, has a long way to go. It's a new science. Psychology has been around just over 100, 125, 150 years. That's a long way from 3,000. There's so much we want to know about human nature. There's so much we'd like to know what we don't. In chemistry, there's literally billions of books have been written on chemistry. In psychology, even though it's 100 years or so, 125, 150 years old, there are thousands of books written. Here's the bad news that you're going to have to live with. There's one book written on personality DNA. One. Once you've read that one book that Carlos and I wrote, and once you go through the certification program, guess what? Everything you know about these 12 personality types is going to come from you coaching one person at a time. The experience of coaching one opportunist, one altruist, one holistic personality at a time, that you'll learn get deeper and deeper insight into what an opportunist is, how rich it is, or an altruist, or a responsible personality. You're going to have to be the person who understands 12 personality DNA better than anyone else in the world, because you're the few number of people who are been trained in it. In fact, if we're being straightforward with you, and as you know, you're the first group of people in the world, look around you, who have been certified and trained to be certified DNA personality coaches. And I admire you for that, and I envy you for that. I hope in the next 1,000 years, 5,000 years, they won't forget you. And even if they do, because I'm not very high in the need for recognition or status, I will feel proud of myself for having been a part of something that I believe can change people's lives in a way that psychology hasn't yet been able to do. Sure, there's been psychotherapy. There's been lots of coaching that helps people improve who they are. But I think at the end of the day, personality types will prove to have a capacity to enrich people's lives, like it had mine at the age of 75. Bachelor of Science in Psychology, Bachelor of Science in Organic Chemistry, Master of Science in Clinical Neurological Psychology, a PhD in Counseling Psychology, teaching hundreds, how to interpret hundreds of psychological tests. And yet this funny little instrument, this funny little test that measures, and the research that came from 12 personality types impressed me. Okay? What I would like to share with you is 3 things I do know, to emphasize again, some of us repeat. These 12 personality types do exist. And once you understand that, you'll start seeing the world from a totally different perspective. You will start viewing your own life and understanding the life of others in a very different perspective. Because once you become knowledgeable of each one of them in depth, you'll see them interacting with each other. Okay? The other piece is that, how do you say it? Each one of them is very unique, as I said. Less than 2% of the population will have your personality DNA that you got from the test. Okay? That means that 98 out of 100 people you meet every day aren't you like you are. They don't communicate like you do. They don't relate to other people the way you do. Their career interests, the things that give them passion, 98 out of 100 people you meet, they don't have it in common with you. What I have found is that people who are like bond together, just like molecules. Insightful personality types tend to find each other. Responsible personality types tend to find each other. Altruists tend to find each other, et cetera, et cetera. Thank God for that. Otherwise, it'd be impossible to find people that we share who we are with, that we can be ourselves and talk, and that person actually understands us. They know, hey, I can relate to that person. But 98 out of 100 people do not have your purpose in life. You bring that richness to us. The second thing is that I've discovered when I start seeing the world from a 12 DNA personality perspective, I started appreciating that every single one of these 12 personality types is absolutely, unconditionally required for the type of human civilization that we live in. If you take away one single personality type, let's take an easy one, the analytic personality type. If we take this individual personality type out of the equation, let's say nature screwed up and it didn't give humanity any analytic personality types, where would we be today? It's quite unimaginable. Because you know who the analytic personality types are? They're the engineers. They're the computer programmers. There's the scientists. They're the financial gurus. Where would we be without people who loved doing what analytic personality types love doing? Okay? Being engineers. Okay? We're going to take that all away from you. If they don't exist, who are we as a human race? Still be in caves, I suspect. We certainly wouldn't be driving cars. And we certainly wouldn't be having this video conference. Okay? Every single personality type exists for a reason. We're all necessary if we want the world to be civilized as human beings. Okay? Those are the three things that I do know about personality DNA, over and above the science of it. So, in ending, if you realize what the challenge is that you have before you, using a new science, because you're now being taught how to use a new way to see the world, a new way to see how human beings are, to understand them in a totally different way. And it's going to be such a challenge. I'll forgive anyone in this classroom who, at the end of my talk, says, "Hey, I'm out of here. This is too much." I think I'm going to go back to my own way, my own science of understanding human nature. I'll be very forgiving. But I'm very appreciative of all of you, everyone who embraces, just as I did, this new understanding of human nature and a way of understanding people with more depth than most psychological tests have been able to achieve from my perspective. Then I'll hold you in very high regard. Thank you and have a great workshop. Take care. Bye.